As a creative aspect, TV is one of the best things that we do as a species. Along with music and film and books, they bring out the best creative of all of us. They entertain and they bring so much joy to many. They invoke emotion and enable us to feel things that we bury sometimes deep down. That's what this podcast is for. Welcome to A Million Little TV Shows. This is what I call the breakdown while I break down. Each week I will go through a different TV show, a different season of that TV show, and different episodes of that show. And I will break down not only emotions, but I will break down stories from my life, and let you know why these TV shows mean so much to me, and why I believe that they are some of the most important shows out there. This podcast is here to highlight a lot of smaller TV shows, or TV shows that don't really get a platform, because we know of a bunch of TV shows that get a multitude of different podcasts. Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, The Office, they've all got several podcasts out there analysing all types of different things. But there's not many out there for the little guy, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So each week I will go through a different show, different seasons, different episodes, and I will go across all different kinds of genres and different countries to bring you what I believe is some of the best TV out there. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you're here for this journey. And if you've watched the shows before and you wanted to come here and get an analysis on them and have someone go through them and pick out bits that you might have enjoyed, then I'm glad you are here. If, however, you have never watched the show and you just want to come and have someone talk in your ear about different TV shows, I'm glad you are here. But I hope that it inspires some people to go and seek out these TV shows. They deserve to be watched. They were made with love and care, and they are the same as this podcast, made with love and care. I am your host, Mike, and I will take you through every adventure, every horror, every piece of drama, and I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 11 of season 10, and today we're going to be getting back into the world of miracle workers. We're going to be going down the Oregon Trail, and we're going to be joining up with an incredible ensemble cast, and I just cannot wait to get into it. I think it's going to be hilarious as always, and yeah, it's the season that got me into this show, and I'm so glad it did because it made it very interesting and initially gave me 2 other seasons to watch and then a final season as well. So plenty to go out with it, plenty to talk about, plenty to laugh about, and I just want to get back into it. So, hope you're all doing well out there in this insane world that we live in right now, and really hope that this brings you some sort of joy or laughter, or at least just reminiscing old times watching these shows. At the end of the episode, I will talk about what I'm going to be covering next season, so look forward to that. And yeah, I just think that we should get on with today's show. So, this is Miracle Workers, Season 3, Episodes 4-7. Episode 4, What Happens in Branchwater. So, the next stop on the wagon train tour is the town of Branchwater. This has always been known as a town of ill repute, and Benny cannot wait to get there. He's giddy about all this, even though the Reverend is like, I don't want to go. Everyone else on the wagon train, though, says that they do, and oddly enough, it's a democracy, so they end up going. Once they get there, however, Benny is disappointed because it seems like, even though everyone else is kind of having a good time, this place isn't what it used to be. In the main saloon that's there, Benny can't even keep his gun on him. He's unable to order things the way that he wants them, and it feels like this place has now become more touristy than actual gunslinger. And so he's kind of disappointed by this. Even when the actual gunslinger from the show turns up, he sees the town as the same. He finds it unfortunate that the town has degraded itself to this. They've got things like merch, and you have to wait for a table, and it's not the old place that they used to know. We've all probably got one where we remember a place as the way it was until we actually go back there and it's totally changed. And so Benny feels unhappy about this. But even though he's meant to be hunting him, he and the gunslinger end up sitting down to actually talk about the past. They're remembering some of the old gunslingers like Dirty Dick Bob and others, but it just doesn't feel the same without those people. This town has now been modernised, and neither of them like it. Everyone else, however, is having a whale of a time, apart from the Reverend. The Reverend has told him that he just wants to sit by the wagons and wait it out. They're going to be there for a day, and he doesn't want to have any involvement in any of the debauchery that's going to be going on there. However, when a snake oil salesman, actually calling himself a snake oil salesman, comes over and tries to sell him said snake oil, he basically tries to diagnose him there and then. However, when the Reverend turns around and says, "Oh, my friend just basically told me that I was no fun because I wanted to stay by the wagons," he said, "Well, drink this. This'll make you really fun." His friend obviously being Prudence. And so he drinks this elixir and heads off. And it's a little bit like the scene from Harry Potter where he drinks the Felix Felicis, and Daniel Radcliffe just plays that kind of goofy, drunk person really well. And he heads off into the nearest bar, and when he gets there he bumps into Prudence. Now, Prudence, while in town, is wanting to let her hair down a little bit, and while she's there she's seen a group of women who she calls ladies of the night. However, they prefer to be called whores. And so these whores, as they prefer to be called, basically ask her to come and join their group for the night. They say that they're going to get her into the attire of a whore and they're just going to have a good time. Maybe even she'll take on a client or two. Of course, the first person that comes over to her is the Reverend, and the girls leave her to it. Prudence can see a massive change in the Reverend, and when he tells her that he's been drinking this snake oil, she gets a little bit worried that maybe he's not himself because of this. They end up dancing together, but after a while the Reverend disappears. Prudence can't find him anywhere, and eventually she bumps into her husband. Now, Todd has actually been gambling all night. He left his wife at the bar, and that's where she met the women. When he left, he told her that he was going to go and play poker with the big boys. He's walked in all confident and cocky and ended up losing pretty much everything. He's down to his last stitch. He's literally in his undergarments. He's told them that he's going to head off and go and get some more money, but they don't believe him and they follow him out. When he actually bumps into Prudence, he doesn't realise it's his wife and spills the beans exactly of what he's been doing, that he's been losing money and that he's lost everything. And that now he's just trying to get away from these goons before they beat him up. And so before Prudence can actually react to any of the things that are going on, all of a sudden the lights go down. Music comes on the stage and the spotlight comes on the stage. It's the Reverend, and he is dressed in what look to be leather chaps and some sort of leather waistcoat just over his shoulders. He's also covered in glitter and has more eyeliner than J.D. Vance. And so he starts dancing and singing to the tune of "She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain," but in a really kind of sultry, sexy way. And it's one of those things where you want to look away, but you physically can't. It's such a ridiculous thing to see Daniel Radcliffe doing this. Again, he's Harry Potter, he will be forever, and it's really weird to watch, but it's really funny and such a daft thing for him to do. He's virtually like topless, he looks like a stripper, and it's hilarious. But he does the dance, and then he comes off stage. He walks over to Prudence and says that he's going to do something that he's always wanted to do. He holds out his hands, and you think that he's going to cup her face and kiss her, or tell her how he feels. Because at the beginning of the episode, we see that he is absolutely into her. He's started having dreams about her and, as he puts it later on, coveting her. And so when he puts his hands out, Prudence is expecting him to grab her face. However, he grabs her tits and starts doing aruga and honka honka. And of course, Prudence fucking slaps him because he deserves it. Like, he shouldn't be getting away with that shit. No one should. The next morning, he is badly hungover. He apologises to her and tells her that he's sorry for everything, but he does feel something for her, and that it's stupid that it's taken him this long to actually admit it. But there is feelings there. She can't understand any of this, and because she's married, she doesn't want to engage with anything like this. He's her best friend, and she didn't think that this was coming. And so they get back on the wagon train, but on separate cars. After the night that Benny's had, just reminiscing about the old times with the gunslinger, they come out, and the gunslinger's basically said that he's going to give it all up because he's never going to catch Benny, and what's the point anymore? Everyone else seems to have moved on, and he doesn't feel like he's ever going to move on from this. And so maybe now it is time to actually start thinking about moving on. Benny can't believe this, and he doesn't want him to actually move on. He wants to carry the chase on because that's given meaning to his life so far. And just as they're about to leave, and they call a truce on all of this, Benny says, "Well, what if I steal this horse? What if I'm a naughty boy in front of you?" And it seems to be sort of a come and catch me kind of vibe to the both of them. And so, after a moment or two, the gunslinger decides that he's going to continue this pursuit. He tells Benny he's got 60 seconds to get out of here, and then he'll come after him. Benny and the train head out, and the gunslinger counts to 60 seconds exactly. However, because of the strict rules within the bar that no one is allowed a gun after 6 p.m, the gunslinger had his gun taken off of him, and so he has to run back into the bar and go and pick it up. And then once again, he heads on after Benny. Episode 5, Meet the Noonans. So while they're going along the trail, the group are actually robbed. And of course, the robbery takes place. And of course, the robbery is by Trig's gang, or Benny's old gang. Straight away, when she introduces herself as the leader, Benny tells her that he's missed her and that he wants to reconnect. The boys insist that he comes back with them to their camp, and Benny heads off with the group. Once they get there, however, you can see the tension between both Benny and Trig. Trig really doesn't want him there, and just wishes that she'd have finished the job when she shot him the first time. But she is trying to make nice at this point. Benny, however, is back to his old ways. He makes it feel like his group again. He starts instructing them what to do, and obviously Trig is the leader, and she doesn't take too kindly to it. When the gunslinger turns up and is following the group, because he's obviously following Benny, he gets caught and the group bring him in. There's two debates on how to actually kill him. Benny wants to do some torturous shit to him, whereas Trig just wants to shoot him in the head and have it done with. But the group agree with Benny and they want the old ways to come back. So they end up burying the gunslinger up to his head and hoping that the fire ants come and eat him. Trig heads back into their den and basically is just pissed. She can't believe Benny's come back and he is being the way that he's being. But when she gives him a piece of her mind and tells him that she doesn't really want him there, she wished that she'd done the job properly before, and she's sick of the way that he is. He tells her that she's right and she'll never be as good as he is, and that she has to learn things her own way and do things her own way, but they'll never be the way that he led the group. And if she's happy with that kind of mediocrity, then that's fine. He was just trying to teach her. He realises that he isn't wanted at the group anymore and ends up heading back to camp. Of course, when he gets back to camp, they've been having the story of their own. After Benny left, another group came along, and it was a group called the Noonans. Now, these are a religious sect who seem to have very Puritan ways. But they tell the wagon train that they are going to help them get themselves back on their feet because, obviously, of the devastation that has been left behind by Benny's former group. They start mending the wagons and they start healing people, including Todd, who has got no ailments, but he's just milking it because that's the kind of person he is. The Reverend, however, meets Fedra. She is part of the Noonan gang and seems quite interested in him. Obviously, him being the religious leader of the group, she starts to see some attraction in him. He, off the back of being devastated by Prudence, actually thinks that maybe he can find a relationship here. And so he begins to pursue Phaedra. She is very happy for this, but of course there is a religious leader of their group, the Noonans, and he wants her to stay pure for God. In fact, he wants the relationship to stay pure for God, and so he keeps interrupting every time that they get close, saying that they need to have at least 3 meters for God, or when they're about to kiss later on, that maybe they need 3 centimeters for God. And so any physical interaction between them cannot happen. But after only their first date, the Reverend and Fedra decide to get married. Of course, it's more the Noonans' decision than anyone's, but they are about to get married, and this obviously shocks Prudence. After the last episode, when she basically told him that he needed to move on and that he needed to find someone else and that maybe this wasn't the right thing for them, he's now found that person and he's pursued her and he's been able to get with her, which has seemed to have an effect on the way that Prudence sees him. That night they end up having an engagement dinner, and during that, Prudence actually starts talking about some of the things that the Reverend gets up to. Nothing crazy, just that he farts every now and again and that he is a little bit silly and he has been known to stay up past 9:30. And of course this Puritan group are shocked by this. They tell them that the wedding is off, and the Reverend is pissed because after everything that has happened, he's managed to move on, and Prudence is the one who's actually broken this wedding off. The next day, Phaedra ends up getting married anyway, and just as they're about to do the I-do's, Prudence actually puts her hand up and says that she objects to this marriage. She tells Phaedra that this man, the Reverend, is a really good guy. She couldn't find anyone better than him, and she deserves the best, and he deserves to be happy. So maybe she should give him a second chance. Phaedra straight away does exactly that. She calls the wedding off and she manages to end up marrying the Reverend instead. But we can see that this is devastating for Prudence. The Noonans, after doing all of their work and the marriage and everything like that, decide to wagon up and head off. And I can only assume that Phaedra is staying with the Reverend's wagon train now, and that she will be travelling along with Prudence and the rest of the gang. And so I think it's best that we find out. Episode 6, Independence Rock. The group are almost halfway between where they started and their finished point, Oregon, and it is currently the 3rd of July. They have a day to actually get to Independence Rock before the inevitable July 4th, and they are going to be celebrating Independence Day at Independence Rock. Once they get there, it seems like there is a real party vibe going on, and they are not the only people that have actually gone to Independence Rock. It seems like it is a place to go for this particular holiday, and this is also the Reverend's and Prue's favourite holiday. However, now that Phaedra is with them, she takes offence at this particular holiday because it brings joy and happiness. And she tells her now husband, the Reverend, that any celebration of this will be against their religious beliefs and something that she just cannot stand by. This is going to end up ruining the whole holiday for the Reverend because it is literally his favourite day. And of course, it's going to end up ruining the holiday for Prudence as well because she generally spends it with the Reverend. But when Prudence suggests that maybe they can get up to some hijinks during that day, he thinks that maybe Phaedra will be into that. And they can head off as a threesome and do some fun activities. Like I've said, Phaedra is against fun whatsoever, and tells the Reverend that the only fun thing that she wants to do that day is to get rid of graffiti that is on Independence Rock and restore it to the way that it was before. It would seem that any time that anyone passes this place, they have to carve their names and initials into things because that's what we end up doing as humans. We can't help ourselves, apparently, and it's no difference here. And so instead of enjoying the celebrations that are going on around Independence Rock, the Reverend is actually stuck doing manual labour. Eventually, a group of patriots come along and ask what the hell is going on at this rock. Phaedra ends up badmouthing them, and once they leave, the Reverend tells Prudence that he doesn't want to be there. He wants to be out having fun. She tells him to sneak away and that maybe he's got something else to do, and he makes up an excuse and leaves. He and Prudence hang out all day and end up making reference to the fact that both Phaedra, who is now cleaning up this rock on her own, and Todd, who is playing beer pong and getting absolutely wasted, aren't exactly the fireworks that both Prudence and the Reverend thought that they would have in their life. The only time that they're ever really happy is when they're around each other and enjoying each other's company. Once Phaedra ends up finding out that the Reverend is actually off enjoying himself, she comes to find him and she scolds him for doing so. That night they end up back at their wagon and she just wants him to pray. Essentially she uses the phrase, "pray America away," which I mean is kind of apt right now, but I wouldn't pray it away. But heal it maybe, that would be a fucking fantastic thing right now. However, the Reverend just gets annoyed at this and ends up leaving his wife to pray alone. He heads out to see Prudence, and when he finds her, he realises that she is his fireworks. And for the first time in this season, they end up kissing, and it is reciprocated from both parties. Benny, on the other hand, has been tasked with babysitting. It seems like some of the young children that actually are part of the wagon train actually like him. They think he's a nice guy, and they just call him Uncle Benny, and they hang around with him. He, however, has heard from the gunslinger that Trig is in town as well, and that she is robbing people at this fair. He heads over to see her and see what she's up to, and when he gets insulted by someone who tells him, "Oh, who are you? Oh, you're Benny the teen. Oh, yeah, my parents used to be scared of you," he realises that he's just gotten old, and that he's not as scary as he used to be, and that he needs that fear back. He comes up with a dastardly plan to actually blow up Uncle Sam. He's going to strap him to the fireworks display that night and kill him in front of the patriots that are at this fair. However, once he ends up getting Trig in place and the rest of her crew to prove how bad he is, the kids from the wagon train turn up and say that why is he doing this? They don't believe that he's such a bad guy. They love him, and this isn't him. He runs on stage and he manages to save Uncle Sam before the fireworks go off. But he's also humiliated in front of Trig because he's done the right thing. Later that night, Trig and the crew head off, and they tell him that they're being hunted by a bounty hunter. He realises who they mean as he sees the gunslinger leave the fair as well. And now he's upset because the person that's been following for so long is gone, his family and his friends of a previous life have gone, and he's done it all for this wagon train that he doesn't really care about or doesn't see the value in anymore. After the Reverend and Prudence have been kissing all night and the Reverend heads back to his wagon, he finds Benny packing up. He asks him where he's going, and Benny says he's sick of this life. He needs to get back to what he was doing before, and he doesn't care what anyone thinks. He's a bad guy, and he always has been, and so he's going to leave them where they are, even though they're only halfway to Oregon, and he's going to get back to what he was best at, and that's robbing people and living the life of an outlaw. And as he rides off into the night, the Reverend realises how fucked they are. Episode 7, White Saviour. And so after thinking that they're pretty fucked, the group are actually doing really well. They're actually making good time and moving along pretty swiftly. However, when one of the oxen actually starts to lay down and take a breather, they realise that they're not going to go anywhere, and that maybe keeping Benny there was a good thing for them, because this would have never happened on his watch. Benny, however, has actually found himself running into a tribe of Native Americans. When he becomes their prisoner, he tells them, look, I'm willing to do anything. I'm happy to be here and just be part of the group. One of the group's female warriors, Sheila, which is an awesome name, by the way, especially for a Native American, she essentially tells the chief that they should kill him. However, the chief takes mercy on Benny and lets him join the group, but he will be under Sheila's watch. Benny essentially becomes Sheila's slave, but he won't shut up and he keeps trying to lead the group. Instead of actually listening, he believes that he has come there to be their saviour and to help them out. So eventually, when American soldiers come across their camp and tell them that they're going to have to move, Benny tries to intervene. The chief has already accepted that they will move because he knows that if he doesn't listen to these generals, they'll just bring an army and they'll move them or they'll kill them. And since they have been dwindling in numbers due to the fact that they have fought these battles prior, he knows it's sensible just to move on. Benny tells them that they need to stand up for themselves and that they need to actually tell the Americans no. And so he offers to take a party to go and speak with the general. When he does, he is laughed out of the place by the Americans. And they tell him, look, we're going to build a mall there one day. So they need to move. And now that you have tried to interfere, we're going to make them move by force. So either they move or we kill them. Once Benny's back at camp and he tells them the horrific news that they're about to die, Sheila and the chief come up with a plan to get rid of Benny so that he doesn't cause them any more problems. They know that they're going to get into this battle, but with Benny there, it's just going to cause more and more issues. And so they tell him that he can be part of the group, but he needs to walk off into the distance and keep walking, and when he thinks that he has found the thing that he needs, just keep walking a little bit further. Benny doesn't realise that they're just trying to get rid of him. And so when he does walk off and ends up finding a rattlesnake, he thinks that that is his spirit animal. Of course, being an idiot, the way that he can be at times, he kneels and he talks to the snake. The snake obviously bites him, because that's what snakes do, and he thinks he's still had an epiphany. He heads back to the tribe just as they're about to get into this battle with the Americans, and feels a little bit offended by the fact that the natives were actually going to engage in battle without him. They'd said that they would wait for him until he got back, but obviously they just wanted to get rid of him. The battle begins to rage on, and Benny isn't doing anything to help. He's just wandering around the camp looking lost and following Sheila around. Sheila is basically a badass and trying to kill anyone and everything that moves to make sure that her tribe can survive. But Benny's just being a bother to her, and when he starts to ask about why she is doing this, why she is being this way towards him, she tells him, look, this is all about survival for us, and you're not listening. You've never listened since you've been here. You've tried to take over, and you've tried to do things your way, and we don't do them that way. This battle is all because of you and the way that you acted, and instead of trying to help us out, you're just being selfish. You're not listening to us, and you never have. You're just an atypical American, essentially. And she also tells him that he was never their white saviour. He has just hindered them, and now he's weakened them as well. Benny asks what he can do for them, what he can actually do instead of just being Benny. When Sheila tells him to go get water and pick up arrows, he begins to go back into usual Benny mode and then realises that no, he needs to help out. He needs to do the things that has been asked of him instead of just coming up with his own plan. And so he begins to help out, right up until the point when the general actually spies him and is about to kill him. But just in time, Sheila turns up and manages to take out the general, and Benny is safe. He realises the error of his ways and knows that he should probably go back to his own people, because while he was there, he had purpose, and he knows that he can help them in their quest across the Oregon Trail. He thanks the natives for everything that he's learned from them, and when he tries to kiss Sheila, she punches him in the face, because of course she does. He thought that they were getting along so well that they'd turn from enemies to lovers, but she told him, no, we definitely aren't that, and smacked him in the face. However, when he actually gets back to the wagon train and finds out that they've been dealing okay without him, in fairness, he once again starts to feel a little lost, but he tells them that he's going to just sit with them. If they don't need a saviour, then is he okay to just sit with them? They accept him back into the group and tell him that they've missed him, and essentially he realises that he's at home. These people are his home, and he doesn't have to be Benny the Teen or Benny the White Saviour, he just has to be Benny. And he has to listen to what people want and what people need, and if he can suggest something maybe better, then yeah, step in, but he has to listen to people as well, not just constantly give his own ideas. And so we start to see that Benny is growing from this selfish outlaw to an integral part of the group now. But to find out what happens next, you're going to have to tune in 2 weeks' time. Now, this show has been fantastic throughout, and I love the way that they've actually been able to portray the Reverend in this. I think he's an interesting character, and I think that the moral decline that he's been having over the last few episodes, obviously he coveted his friend's wife, he has gotten married and managed to actually cheat on his wife as well, and it seems that temptation isn't far away from his door. We know from the get-go that he's had feelings for Prue, but they're really starting to manifest now. And of course, her on the other side is exactly the same now. She is feeling things for him, and she is tempting herself to be with him. Even on the wagon train, just before they break down in the last episode, she essentially says to him that they should stop off and join the 2 mile an hour club, which essentially is having sex on the wagon that his wife is in. So they're both in this lustful spot right now where they're happy to play dangerous with each other's affections, but also with each other's partners. And of course, with the temptation that he's been having someone like Phaedra actually be by his side is going to test his boundaries when it comes to his religion, because she is very, very extreme when it comes to her love of God. Whereas he just wants to be a good moral guide for everyone, but obviously now that he's having an affair, he's not a moral guide anymore. And that isn't to say that he's not a good guy, because he is. He seems like a really nice guy, and he seems like someone who has just found temptation, as we probably all have at some point in our lives. There'll be one or two of you out there that say no to that statement, but at some point we've all had that little bit of temptation, and it's sometimes intoxicating. And so now having someone as morally good as Phaedra on board, it obviously shows the Reverend's grey areas. Like I've said before, I'm always happy to explore grey areas with people. As for Benny throughout this, his journey when it comes to actually finding family, that seems to be the main aim of him. He's always been a lone star until he met his daughter Trig, and then obviously Trig literally shot him in the back. And he's now had to distance himself from that group, but he ended up finding the Reverend and his group, and now after realising that he just needs to listen more and needs to actually engage properly with the group instead of his way or the highway, he's actually started to realise that the Reverend and the group are more family to him than just people that he is helping out. And so going forward, we should see Benny more as a father figure in this group, because that's who he is now. As the kids have said, he is Uncle Benny and they love him. And I feel like a lot of the group actually feel that way about him. But I think the way that they've portrayed these characters throughout has been magnetic. It really has. It's been so interesting to watch them develop and see them get to a much better place now. And obviously we've got 3 episodes left, so there is plenty more to get out before we finish the Oregon Trail, but I'm here for it. I love it. This is such a good series, and it's a lot of fun to watch, and, rewatching it again, I always say it, I know, but I genuinely don't remember what happens. And yeah, I'm enthralled to actually see this again, and hopefully when I cover the last 3 episodes in 2 weeks, it'll end on a good note, because obviously we know that the last 3 episodes of this are the last 3 episodes of the Oregon Trail. The season after, season 4, is actually sort of a Mad Max style dystopia. So we've got 3 episodes on the Oregon Trail, and then we've got 10 episodes next season to cover of that. So I'm done for today. This has been a blast. I fucking love this show, and I'll be sad when it's gone. But I hope you're all doing well out there, and I hope I've managed to entertain you at least somehow. But just before I leave, I just want to tell you all about what's coming up next season. Next season on A Million Little TV Shows podcast, which will be season 11, can you believe? I'm going to be covering Kaleidoscope. That was a one-off series, and as yet I am unsure as to what order I am actually going to be doing the episodes in, because they aren't ordered 1 to 8, I think it is. They're actually ordered by colour, so I may end up doing it something like the rainbow, but I will confirm later on what I'm going to do. Then there's going to be Miracle Workers Season 4, which will finish off Miracle Workers. Then there's going to be Dying for Sex, which is another one-off series, and was incredibly acted and really fun. A really incredible fun show. I think if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out, because it's really, really good. Then we're going to finish off Loudermilk as well. That's going to be Season 3. And then we're going to finish off Mindhunter for now, because hopefully at some point in the future we will get Mindhunter back. But for now, Mindhunter Season 2 is going to be the finale of that. So I cannot wait to get into that next season. But of course, we've got to finish up this season now. But as for today, I'm done. So thank you all for listening. And until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, and you could really help me and the podcast by giving a like, share, subscribe on all major platforms that you listen to podcasts on. As an independent podcaster, this will just help me exponentially when it comes to actually doing more things with this podcast. I truly do enjoy this, and I absolutely love revisiting these TV shows with you guys. So any engagement from you is always welcome, and I will try and listen to all of you when you give suggestions or just tell me what you think about the podcast. But once again, thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.